What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 5 wide receiver steals for the 2021 fantasy football season. Basically, these are all late round guys ranked outside of the top 25 wide receivers currently with serious league winning upside. So make sure to tune in. And if you enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe. Let us hear it in the comments section. Do you agree, disagree? Who else would you put in this category? And do you have any other questions? If you do, let us hear them. We will make sure to answer them all. And lastly, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. And while you're there, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you could want at a great price. Details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it. You can see we've got our list of wide receivers pulled up here. Quick note, this is PPR based, so just keep that in mind. And like we alluded to, we're going to be scrolling down to outside of our top 25 wide receivers per these averages across several different platforms. And we begin here with one T. Higgins of the Cincinnati Bengals. And T. Higgins right now comes in at number 28. And I think he's ranked a little bit too low. A lot of it has to do with the fact that probably Jamar Chase, the sexy pick, being picked by the Cincinnati Bengals so early on in the first round when they still needed serious offensive line help, tells you probably how much the coaching staff, and maybe even more so Joe Burrow, trusts this guy to be an immediate impact. But per our rankings right now, we don't think that Jamar Chase will necessarily outproduce T. Higgins by all that much in his first year. In fact, we have them for pretty similar types of results, between 1,000 and 1,100 yards. The receptions could be a little bit different because Higgins might not get that volume, but they both have very similar touchdown upside. The wide receiver that's hurt the most by the addition of Jamar Chase, in my opinion, is Tyler Boyd. He's kind of that forgotten man. And let's not forget, T. Higgins was a guy that succeeded in his rookie season, whether it was with Joe Burrow, without him. He really played very well, a weapon in the red zone. More than likely, what will be the determining factor in between the race of Jamar Chase versus T. Higgins, who will be the wide receiver one for this team, will be the touchdowns. I'd say T. Higgins is probably a little bit more of a standard suited wide receiver because his reception count, I don't see it getting to that 100 reception number. But in terms of yards, in terms of touchdowns, he has all those traits for a standard type of scoring format. In my opinion, right now, the way the Bengals are set up, a defense that still has to take that next step, which means the offense will be playing catch-up more likely than not in a lot of games, an offensive line that might not precipitate the most amount of success for the rushing attack in Joe Mixon. I'm not saying that, they can't take the next big step forward, but I think it's a little bit less likely than we would like it to be. Means that Joe Burrow will have to sling the football a bunch. And to me, the biggest play wide receivers on this team are T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You could argue Boyd is that late round sleeper in PPR formats that, will just get you a decent amount of receptions per game. And that's going to be the kind of high floor part of it. But Higgins and I would say Jamar Chase, again, are the guys that have the blow-up potential more so than anyone on this offense. And the fact that you can get T. Higgins pretty much a round later than Jamar Chase, who, by the way, is ranked 4 spots higher than T. Higgins, I think is pretty good value. Also, reports are coming out of camp that T. Higgins, playing very well, could very well be the number one dude for the Cincinnati Bengals. So I, again, really, really like this opportunity for Higgins. You're going to be able to get him, close to the 6th round, if not afterwards, depending on the size of your leagues. So Higgins is definitely a name to keep in mind, especially with the fact that Joe Burrow is someone that we really like as well in terms of a late round quarterback with some serious upside as well. But moving on, let's scroll down all the way here to our second wide receiver on this list. That is Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans. Coming in at number 36, a wide receiver that I think will have his value skyrocket here in the next couple of weeks because more and more it is looking like Deshaun Watson will be playing this season and it'll be starting in week 1. And if that's the case, well, first and foremost, Deshaun Watson, who's being drafted outside of the top 10 quarterbacks, outside of the top 15, outside of the top 20 sometimes, is going to be a top 5 quarterback I mean, he's that kind of quarterback every single season. So when you insert that type of talent into your offense, then obviously every single weapon is going to benefit. And Brandon Cooks is the best weapon that the Houston Texans have. Yes, they just acquired Anthony Miller, but Anthony Miller wasn't that guy in Chicago. I don't think he's all of a sudden going to take that next big step forward. And even if he does improve, which great, Brandon Cooks is still the most talented wide receiver on this team. No more Will Fuller. So Brandon Cooks, I think, again, is the unquestioned number one guy. The rushing attack, in my opinion, doesn't offer all that much. You've just got a bunch of dudes there. I mean, it's David Johnson, Philip Lindsay. Nobody really is all that big of a difference maker. I think that will take away from the passing attack. And right now, it's going to be a situation where Deshaun Watson has to do it all with his arm. The offensive line, could be better. The defense could be a lot better. So Deshaun Watson, similar to last season, he's going to have to air out the ball a bunch. And Brandon Cooks is so damn underrated year after year. All this guy does is put back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons wherever he goes when he is healthy. The guy is sensational. Whether it's with the Patriots, whether it's with the Saints, whether it's with the Rams, whether it's with the Texans last season, Brandon Cooks has that league-winning upside. Again, maybe more so in standard type of leagues because he won't get peppered with targets, but he's got that big playability, that 50-yard touchdown type of possibility. He can do it all. I think he's going to be the favorite target for Deshaun Watson. And right now, him being ranked as the 36th overall wide receiver, where the guy has low-end wide receiver 1 upside. Worst case, I would say high-end wide receiver 2. That is absolute highway robbery. The guy's probably going to be one of my favorite wide receivers to target now. We'll see how much his ADP jumps by, but I would not be shocked if his ADP jumps by, 3 rounds, something drastic like that, because with Deshaun Watson back, this offense and this team, it actually has some viable options fantasy football-wise, namely Brandon Cooks and Deshaun Watson himself. So definitely keep an eye out on that and have Brandon Cooks marked up on your list in terms of target. Now, moving on to our number 3 guy here, we scroll down to Antonio Brown of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, wide receiver 41, our absolute favorite, hands-down late-round wide receiver to target, because I've broken this down so many times, and I'll say it once more. And hopefully this is the factor that convinces you guys, if you haven't already been on the AB bandwagon, to jump on now and take advantage of this absolutely insane gap in ADPs compared to his teammates in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who, for the sake of scrolling up, you see Antonio Brown here ranked as the number 41 wide receiver. Where are Mike Evans and Chris Godwin? Mike Evans, number 13. Chris Godwin, number 17. Pretty much 30 spot difference between them and Antonio Brown. Now, let me ask you, what's the difference in terms of upside for all these 3 wide receivers? When Tom Brady's healthy, when he's throwing the football, when all these 3 guys were on the field at the same time last season, you pretty much had 3 identical copies of the same wide receiver in terms of fantasy football purposes. Sure, Mike Evans has that touchdown upside, but he's not going to get peppered with targets. That's not the type of guy he is. Last season, he literally had a game where he had 2 catches for 2 yards for 2 touchdowns. I hope you see what I'm saying. He's just not that guy that's going to get that huge amount of volume. Now, yes, he has that 1,000-yard upside. He's got that touchdown upside. But in PPR formats, I would have him ranked as the number 3 wide receiver on this team. Chris Godwin, he was hurt last year. What happened when he came back? He became a focal point of this offense. Mike Evans' targets, they went down. Then what happened when Antonio Brown joined this offense? The targets for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down a little bit more. Antonio Brown became, again, a focal point of this offense. Antonio Brown has that chemistry with Tom Brady. Antonio Brown is only a couple years removed from one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He still has it. And him going 30 spots later, which is going to, look, he's 104th overall player, which is going to be right around that 9th, 10th round. That is absolutely egregious. That's going to be a 5, 6, 7 round difference if you go based off this. Now, people that are, realizing the gap in ranking versus value, they're taking Antonio Brown much earlier, like myself. If I can get Antonio Brown in the 8th round, which I usually can, I'm smashing that button every single time, 10 times out of 10. Because guess what? All these 3 wide receivers, doesn't matter, it's Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, they should all be ranked. If you want to do this logically, they should all be ranked probably around the mid 30s, because the reality is there's way too many mouths to feed, and they're not all going to be able to be reliable on a week-to-week basis. But they're still low to mid-level wide receiver 2s, and this is a high-scoring offense for the Bucs with a good defense, which will give them opportunities. But the biggest takeaway here is that for some reason, Antonio Brown isn't viewed as an equal to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And right now that you can get him this late in the game compared to his counterparts makes absolutely no sense. I'm telling you, if there's one wide receiver you want to own for the Bucs, it is Antonio Brown. I mean, a couple of months ago, his ADP was even lower, and I've been screaming it, at the top of my lungs that Antonio Brown should be ranked so much higher. He should be drafted right after Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I don't care where you want to rank these 3 guys. Leave that up to you and your personal rankings or whatever platform you choose to go by. But these 3 wide receivers, you take Mike Evans, afterwards you better be taking Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, one right after the other. That's not the case. So Antonio Brown, not only is he a steal, not only is he a potential late round, league winner, he is arguably the single best value at the wide receiver position for 2021. But enough on Antonio Brown. You guys can tell how big of a fan of his I am. Let's continue to scroll down here, and we get to one Russell Gage of the Atlanta Falcons. Another guy that I think is being seriously undervalued, especially after the departure of Julio Jones, guys. Because after Julio Jones left, Russell Gage and Kyle Pitts, huge beneficiaries. Now, it's still kind of up in the air in terms of how the Falcons will utilize Kyle Pitts. If they throw him out there as the number 2 wide receiver, even though he's a tight end for the Falcons, and he has to be the exact replacement for Julio Jones, then yeah, I'll concede. Russell Gage isn't going to have the same type of upside. But I still think that Kyle Pitts is going to get usage as a prototypical tight end. And he's still a rookie, so let's not forget about that. There's a learning gap. It's not immediate here. Russell Gage last year, when Julio Jones wasn't available, he was the clear-cut number 2 wide receiver for this team. He got a lot of opportunities, and he became a pretty favorite target for Matt Ryan. And speaking of Matt Ryan, another quarterback that's probably underrated. Sure, Julio Jones left, but this is a pass-heavy type of offense for the Atlanta Falcons, pretty much year after year in the top 5 in terms of pass attempts, which means that all these pass catchers, Gage, Ridley, Kyle Pitts, obviously those latter 2 are the much sexier names, are going to have a lot of opportunities. But right now, on an offense that's going to be very pass-heavy, on an offense without Julio Jones that creates a lot of opportunities for everybody. Again, let's not forget about Russell Gage. That's my only plea here. Everybody's upside goes up. I think there's a very real possibility where Russell Gage can get to the 1,000-yard mark or right on the verge of it. And if you can get that with the 57th overall ranked wide receiver coming in 148th overall, again, depending on your league size, 13th, 14th, 15th round, I think Russell Gage can be a fine PPR option, worst case as a flex play. That's something I'm going to be targeting every single time. I don't think the value is as good as Antonio Brown just because, again, we don't quite know how Kyle Pitts will be utilized. But regardless, I think that Russell Gage can be a low-end wide receiver too, and that is not reflected in his rankings at all. To me, in my personal rankings, as soon as Julio Jones left Atlanta, I had Russell Gage as a top 50 wide receiver. I mean, hell, I think you could argue top 45, top 40 even, but having him outside of the top 55 is absolutely ludicrous, and I would definitely take a chance on Russell Gage, considering that it probably won't cost you a damn thing. And then finally, we conclude here with Rashod Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens, the guy who was my favorite rookie wide receiver this season, not named Jamar Chase. I was absolutely in love with Rashod Bateman. Could he have gotten into a better situation than Baltimore? Sure. But is he setting up to be potentially the number one wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens? Yup, because Marquise Brown dealing with a bit of an injury. Sammy Watkins, do you believe in Sammy Watkins other than like the first week, 2 weeks of the NFL season? He just continuously disappears afterwards, and he really isn't a consistent wide receiver, deals with injuries. Other than that, it's Mark Andrews on this offense. This is by far the best group of wide receivers that Lamar Jackson has had around him. And I think Rashod Bateman is the, number one guy immediately, even as a rookie. We've seen like videos of him beating the number one cornerbacks for the Baltimore Ravens. He was an absolute steal in terms of where the Ravens got him in the first round. And I think he is going to have, in terms of the value, in terms of the upside, I think he's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of rookie wide receivers. Yes, people are going to be focusing on Devonta Smith, on Jamar Chase, guys like that, Jalen Waddle. Rashod Bateman is my favorite guy. Sure, the Baltimore Ravens are more prototypical of a run-first team, but if you believe the reports that have been talked about for a while now, before camp began, before the NFL draft, that the Ravens want to become a more pass-heavy team, Lamar Jackson taking that next step forward as a passer, Rashod Bateman has to be somebody that you are targeting. The number 60th overall wide receiver, 166, probably going to go undrafted. I would absolutely take a flyer on Rashod Bateman. I think he can turn into, not necessarily a Justin Jefferson type of guy his rookie season, but maybe a T. Higgins type of player on this offense, where to me, he is the best wide receiver on the team, and I would be targeting him everywhere, especially, again, considering that he's going 166th overall. That's going to translate to, again, the 15th, 16th round, potentially undrafted. So make sure to keep an eye on Rashod Bateman in terms of rookie wide receivers. But with that, we conclude this look at our top 5 2021 fantasy football wide receiver steals. If you guys enjoyed, again, hit that like button and subscribe. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? And lastly, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. While you're there, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. Everything you could want at a great value. Top 150 overall player rankings in standard and PPR formats. Individual players, bio, tiers, projections, everything, details in the description. But with that being said, we'll see you guys in future videos.